Avatar: The Way of Water is turning out to be the success that very few anticipated it would be. It's breaking the same records at the box office as its predecessor, and it's all the talk no matter where you go online. Before I had a chance to see it, I kept wondering, what had the film done right? Surely it couldn't just replicate the formula of the original one. But as it turns out, the excellence of the sequel comes from the same thing as it did with the original: keeping it simple. And I think there's one quality about The Way of Water that really exemplifies everything that it does right, and that is its villain, Colonel Quaritch. We're all familiar with the now all too popular trope of old villains returning for new installments. It's been done well, of course, but it's also been done bad to the point of exhaustion.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
The pattern seems to be that the less dimension a villain has, the worse they'll be the next time around, which isn't exactly a good indicator for Miles Quaritch. Quaritch is definitely not the most interesting villain in history. He doesn't have a driving trauma or an interesting personal link to the protagonist. He's just kinda evil. Quaritch is very one-dimensional. In the first Avatar, he feels almost like a caricature used to exemplify human greed and blindness. He seeks only to destroy the world of the Na'vi so that the humans can extract a highly valuable material from underneath it. He has no interest beyond that. The film never even indicates that he stands to somehow profit from the operation, on top of his salary. He's just really determined and really good at what he does. He doesn't flinch, he doesn't double back or reconsider. He blows full steam ahead until he either gets what he wants or dies trying. So when he finally does die, it feels final. It feels like, symbolically, the greed and resolve of humankind that he exemplified have also met their end, and the story that Avatar set out to tell has been resolved, which is why it is so interesting that Avatar 2 brings him back. He's again the main villain of that story, a character with such a simple drive. On paper, it sounds just like Palpatine. Bring back the dude who does bad stuff to do some more bad stuff, only this time, make him blue. But it works perfectly. Let's take a look at why that might be. Avatar is a film with primal stakes. That means that there is no call to adventure. The story doesn't gently ask its characters to join in, as stories so often do, and it also doesn't encourage them to drop out halfway through. Rather, the conflict of Avatar is comprehensive. It doesn't just concern a single family or group. It touches every aspect of the world that the hero and the villain inhabit. Everything is at stake. There's no running or hiding from it. It is literally about two worlds that cannot coexist. You have the Na'vi, who share a deep connection with their planet, who communicate with it like a friend, and who treat every inch of it as holy. And you have the humans, who just want to tear it all down. To the Na'vi, their world is everything. It's their home, their protector, and their connection to their ancestors. If they don't defend it, they will perish along with it, which is why they must rise against a vastly superior opponent at the cost of everything, even their lives. Set your heroes and villains at the complete opposite ends of the spectrum like this, and suddenly, Quaritch begins to look like the perfect villain. There is no gray area in Avatar, as there so often is. No politics, no meaningful intellectual or ethical debate between the parties. To be engaging, the story of Avatar does not require a villain who needs to be understood on any emotional level. It simply requires one who has to be stopped. Just like Terminator and its sequel. But just like Terminator 2, Avatar 2 twists the premise of the original film on its head. It is no longer about the same world and the same stakes as the previous film. Instead, the stakes become personal, as the new world to protect becomes family. Family is the reason why Jake and Neytiri are prepared to leave their previous world at the beginning of the film. Not because they no longer care, but because they found one that they now want to protect even more. And that's really all you have to do. Changing the values of the world and the quality of the stakes is how Quaritch fits into the sequel just as well as it did into the first film. Turning Quaritch blue isn't simply a decision to give him a new look or differentiate him from the previous film. It's a decision to detach him from his defining characteristics, mainly his humanity. No longer is Quaritch attached to his physical body. No longer is he adamant above all things on protecting his own race, since he's no longer a member of it. He's still got the same mind. He's still just as absolute and unstoppable, but his motivation has changed to something personal as well. Revenge, which then puts him on the same level as Jake, and once again makes the stakes primal. Quaritch is the same unstoppable force as he was in the first film. The only difference is this time he isn't targeting Pandora, but rather Jake's family. The sequel really adds no new dimensions to either of these characters, but it completely redefines the world and stakes of the story, and by doing so, it manages to once again push its hero and villain to the complete opposite ends of a spectrum, and makes for another wildly engaging story. So remember, If you're making a sequel and you want your villain to threaten the new world of your hero as fiercely as they did in the first film, instead of just retiring, you have to be clear about what the world is and how the villain opposes it. Jake's world in the first film is Pandora, the planet and the people that he falls in love with. But in the second film, Jake's world is now his family. It's an even subtler twist on the premise than Cameron had in Aliens or Terminator 2, but it's all the more impactful. Because in both films, Quaritch opposes Jake directly and completely, be that as the leader of an entire platoon or as a single soldier with a knife and a vengeance. And this is why when the second film ends and Quaritch survives, you don't feel frustrated because you have to watch the same villain again in Avatar 3, but rather you feel excited to see how he will manage to threaten Jake's world next time.